Welcome to the All Out Leadership Podcast, hosted by Pastor Eric Lawson, where each episode is uniquely designed to help you live all out by bringing you practical leadership from a biblical perspective delivered in 10 minutes or less. So whether you're a business leader, serving in ministry, or simply looking to grow in your leadership, this podcast is for you. Before we dive into this week's topic, make sure to subscribe to the podcast and download the show notes at ericlawson.com/podcast. And while you're at it, feel free to share the content on social media. Now, let's join Pastor Eric for this week's conversation.
Welcome to the All Out Leadership Podcast. We're continuing on stewardship, and we're specifically looking at how we steward our time. To become effective stewards of time, you always need to start with a goal. You got to start with an end zone. Too many people play life like a guy named Roy Riegels played football. In 1929, Roy Riegels went into the Rose Bowl as the center and captain of California's football team against Georgia Tech. In the second quarter, he picked up a fumble from Georgia Tech, and he started running towards the end zone. But he got hit, and he lost his bearing, and he started running the wrong way. In fact, he ran from the first yard line of his own team's end zone all the way to his own team's first yard line before he was stopped. So his error cost his team 2 points and ultimately the game, and he had to live with the name Wrong Way Riegels the rest of his life. There are times in life that you just kind of get hit and lose your bearings and you end up running the wrong way. But that's how many people live their whole life. They get hurt, they get hit a little bit, and all of a sudden they're running the wrong way in life, only to realize, man, I'm running towards the whole wrong end zone. Even if you get there, you realize it doesn't matter. I like what Stephen Covey says. He said in his book, Habits of Effective Highly People, he talked about that what a shame it would be to climb life's ladder only to get to the top and find it was leaning against the wrong building. And that's what so many people do because they don't, one, either have a clearly defined end zone. We all end up somewhere. We just don't all end up at the right place on purpose. So if we don't have a clearly defined end zone, we don't have a clear goal, we're really going to end up in the wrong place, and we're really not going to end up truly winning. In fact, the only way to win is you actually have to get the ball to the end zone to put points on the board. There's a lot of people that are busy. I meet them all the time. You know them. Man, I'm just so busy. How's it going? I'm just so busy. It's like the American badge of honor to be busy. Busy isn't the same thing as productive. There's a lot of busy people who are ineffective. They're unproductive. Their life's not producing numbers on the board. They're just out on a field running in circles. There's a difference between busy and productive. The bee and the mosquito are both busy. They're both buzzing around. They're both making a lot of noise and both making a lot of movement. But the bee is praised and the mosquito is squatted. Why? Because the mosquito sucks the life out of you while the bee produces delicious, wonderful honey. And there are people who are busy just sucking the life out of things. And then there's people whose life is sweet and producing sweet things. Which one are you? So first, we got to start with the end in mind. This is biblical. Deuteronomy 32:39 says, "Oh, that they were wise, that they understood this, that they would consider their latter end." The Bible is saying, look, start with the end in mind. That's in books. That's in motivational books. It's in Covey books. But Covey didn't come up with that. The Bible started with this. You need to start with what is the end zone. What do you want the end of your life to look like? There's a great exercise, and it's called writing your epitaph. Write your obituary. What is it that you would want read at your funeral by your family member or by your spouse or by a friend or by a child? What would you want them to say? Well, go ahead and write that. And then you'll realize there's probably a significant gap between what you want to be remembered for and celebrated for than what you currently are. All right, well, there's your end zone. Start working on that. Now you can start working backwards to build a plan to get there. Alfred was an inventor of dynamite. As an invention, he made a vast fortune selling dynamite. But later in life, Alfred's brother passed away. And one day he picked up a newspaper to read his brother's obituary. And he found that the reporter had made a mistake, and he thought Alfred had passed away. He didn't realize it was the brother, so he wrote an obituary for Alfred. And so when he read it, he was horrified because the obituary railed on Alfred as a man that invented death through his explosives, and he amassed a great fortune by creating weapons that killed people. And he goes, man, That's terrible. I don't want to be remembered for that. And so he decided what he wanted to be remembered for. He wanted to be remembered as a person who was a philanthropist, of somebody who helped improve the world. So Alfred created a foundation called Nobel Prize, because his name was Alfred Nobel, and he created the Nobel Peace Prize. He took a large portion of his fortune, dedicated it to that foundation, because he wanted to reward people who did things that improved society and humanity. But what inspired him to make that dramatic change? He saw the end. Now, very few of us get the privilege that Alfred had to see what we would be remembered for. Why don't you ask a couple friends, but you pray about it, talk to God about it. But either way, stop and take some time to think about the end and what do you want to be remembered for? What character traits do you want to be remembered for? What you'll probably find is you want to be remembered more for who you are and what you did than what you have. But if you look at your life, most of us are spending more time on what we have than who we are and what we're doing. And so this will really shift priorities of your time and how you manage your time. And once you have an end zone, then it'll clearly keep you on track. And you know when you're off track. People tried to hijack Jesus' time all the time. Hey, Lord, help me do this. Lord, help me do that. And he goes, I'm not your arbitrator. God had sent me to do that. Jesus knew what he was supposed to do, so he knew what he should not do. If you have a clear goal, it'll help you stay on track.
Thank you for joining us on the All Out Leadership Podcast. We hope you gained new biblical insight that challenged you to grow in your leadership. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, we would love your help in getting the content out farther. You can help by subscribing to the podcast at ericlawson.com/podcast and telling others about it. Next week, Pastor Eric will be back with another episode. So until then, we hope you have a great week being an all-out leader.